So Andrea, did you catch the nominations announcement?
Yes, I did actually, and I was actually surprised to see who was hosting them. It was Priyanka Chopra Jonas and Nick Jonas.
So the Oscars are a very long ceremony. It can take hours, but most people will just tune in. I know this is certainly true for myself, for the big five, which are Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and the Best Screenplay.
Yes, so usually because the Oscars are in the early hours of the morning for us being in Europe, they usually start around 2 a.m. for us. I tend to watch the highlights the next day because otherwise it's really difficult to watch all those different categories, and I think they usually last around 5 hours.
So it's really amazing that the Oscar ceremony is finally going to take place with all of the COVID-19 complications, right?
Yes, definitely. So it has been a bit of a weird awards season, but I'm glad that they found a way to still do this ceremony. As a moviegoer myself, I've definitely been missing cinema, although at times the cinemas have been open, it's still not quite been the same.
Cinema is British English. What do Americans say for the same place? Movie theater.
Yeah, I haven't been to a movie in the theater in ages, so I'm definitely looking forward to being able to do that again. There's been a lot of other award ceremonies that have happened kind of like despite the COVID situation, but I've seen that most of them have actually been done via Zoom, right? But the Oscars, I've heard, have been trying really hard to make the ceremony an in-person event.
Yeah, I've read some things about that as well. I think there's going to be lots of superstars there presenting some awards. And obviously a big part of the Oscars is the red carpet, and this is always big news, a chance to see what everybody is wearing. And despite the difficulties, apparently there will be a red carpet this year.
What would the Oscars be without a red carpet? I mean, that's just like a huge part of the event in and of itself.
You know, we're so used to waist up fashion these days with Zoom calls and everything, and now it's time for some real gowns and some real fashion too.
It's time to change out of the sweats.
Exactly.
Although I have noticed I haven't really seen most of the films that are up for an award. I've found that most of them seem to be a lot more obscure than in previous years.
If a movie is obscure, it is not very well known.
That's true, and the Academy Awards changed their criteria for what makes a movie eligible this year due to the COVID situation.
And how is that? How is the eligibility criteria modified?
So films that were intended to have a theatrical release were still included, even though they were ultimately released directly to streaming services. So it was a big year for Netflix.
It was. In fact, Netflix has really been leading the pack in nominations. It got 35. That's really incredible.
Wow. So one of the things that was different again this year because of COVID is movie theatres being closed in many places for long periods of time. So there aren't really many blockbuster movies that are nominated. I'd say they're more artsy movies. So earlier we mentioned the big five. So how about we talk a little bit about some of the movies that we're most interested in that have been nominated too?
Maybe one of the most surprising things here in the nominations for Best Actor I found is that one of them could actually be a posthumous award.
If someone gets a posthumous award, they get it after they die.
Right, for Chadwick Boseman, who most of you probably know from the Black Panther movies from Marvel.
Yes, and I remember actually Heath Ledger won this award posthumously for his role playing the Joker in Batman The Dark Knight.
And one in The Sound of Metal too, I was watching the trailer for that. I haven't seen it yet, but it's definitely one that I want to check out because it's really unique in that the main actor is kind of like a musician who goes deaf. So the whole movie is from the perspective of someone who's going deaf. So I think there's parts even where there's no sound because you're kind of like being put in his shoes.
Exactly, and Riz Ahmed is quite an interesting actor as well. And if he does win, He'll also be the first Muslim actor in a leading role winner.
Wow, that's incredible. I bet that movie is a bit of a dark horse, though, as far as the other nominations, right?
Could be.
So maybe we should talk about Best Actress. I actually, again, hadn't heard of most of these, but I checked out some of the trailers. I think the one that stuck out to me the most was Promising Young Woman. It looked like a really captivating storyline.
Yeah, this movie looks so interesting. I think it's just being released around about now, so I'm really curious to watch it. And I do like Carey Mulligan. She was in The Great Gatsby, which I really liked her in that movie as well.
So, going to Best Director,
Why do you not have you?
I'm not so informed here, but I think
Cái
you're,
này năng loan
you
đi
mentioned
phận
something
cái
that
đất
you
sông.
were definitely rooting for to win, right?
I
Yeah,
know,
so
I know.
it's amazing because there are 2 female directors nominated this year, and only one female director has ever won this award. So
Wow.
I'm curious to see what happens here.
And then looking at Best Picture, so I haven't seen any of these yet, but again, like watching the trailers, I added a few to my list to watch beyond Promising Young Woman and Sound of Metal that we already mentioned. I thought that The Trial of the Chicago 7, which I saw is already on Netflix, so I think I might actually catch that this weekend since I can just flip that on. That one looked like it's a really great story. I believe it's based on a true story, right? And it has some incredible actors in it.
There's a great cast in this one for sure.
Yeah, you could say star-studded cast, right?
Exactly.
So we get